Just one more question, and forgive me for going back again about the debt ceiling. Let's say the Senate, let's say the White House will not budge on what you think is adequate compromise on starting spending cuts. Go right up to the wire. They've said it's playing chicken, but going right up to the wire. Will you let it all go down?
Well, they're letting down the American
public. But what would
that.
you all do if they just say, let's just call the bluff, let's go right to the wire?
Diane, part of my frustration is dealing with a White House that promised us if we passed their economic plan, unemployment would go down. I mean, fundamentally, their view of American people, I think, is wrong.
But at this point, if they decide to let the date creep up and you're 2 days before the debt limit.
But that's irresponsible. When others claim that it's irresponsible for us, those of us who are concerned about raising the debt limit, I would argue that there is a time to campaign, there's a time to govern. There is now a time to govern, and everybody needs to come to the table with solutions.
None of you think they'll do that?
I certainly hope they don't. They should.
Guess stay tuned.
Well, we can't control what the White House is going to do. We can only control what we as individuals are going to do.
So would you hold out? Would you say no? Let it.
Well, get back to my premise. The budget deficit is unsustainable. It is the greatest threat that we face as a nation. We're spending money we don't have. Eventually, that will result in a collapse of the federal government. Under those circumstances, all of the benefits that people are now receiving, they're gone or diminished. National defense, gone or diminished. That is a major threat. That is a crisis. We have to deal with it. I'm hopeful that the White House will be responsible and start dealing with it.
That's right. That's well said. And I think that Speaker Boehner and our leadership gets that. I think that they understand the gravity of the situation. And I do have faith that Speaker Boehner and the leadership is going to work with us, the freshman class, and with the entire Congress, to finally to really change the culture. It's about changing the culture of Washington. This borrow and spend mentality has to be changed, and that will not happen overnight. It's not going to happen overnight.
We should be asking, what do we want to attach to it that would allow us to vote for it? If they attach a balanced budget rule that says year in, year out, we have to balance our budget, we can do that by rule, not the Constitution, just by rule. Right. They attach it to the debt ceiling, I'll vote for it.
I think this is also...
That should be our leverage. We should negotiate.
The mentality in Washington is not what John F. Kennedy used to... What he said was, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. The mentality in Washington is, look what our government can do for the American people. We've got to get away from that mentality and realize it's too expensive. We can't afford it.
This will be the legacy of the Tea Party movement. Not protesting. Problem solving. That's right. It's what the Tea Party movement is about, and that's why we're here.
How many of you have seen Mr. Smith Goes to Washington? Or Mrs. Smith? You've all seen it? No. Every one of you?
I've seen it many times.
Mm-hmm. Watch it again before you came?
No.
No.
Favorite moment in it?
The filibuster.
When Jimmy Stewart wins.
When the people win.
This is about preserving and protecting our country. And it's about conviction. The Tea Party movement is about caring about our country and the conviction to do the right thing. In other countries, they protest wanting more from their government. What other country do you have a group of patriots standing up and saying, we want less from our government, leave us alone, preserve and protect our country? And that's what we are here to do.
And it's bigger than any one of us. I mean, we're here for a finite period of time to represent what the people from our respective states want us to do. And we're here to do that. We're here to serve. We're here to represent. We're not here to do anything for ourselves, but for the country.
What are some of the things your children have said to you about this moment, about coming here, being part of this?
Our son Preston, who's 4 years old, every time he sees a flag, he'll turn and he'll look at me. In fact, he said it yesterday. He said, are we still running for America? And I think that's exactly right. It's about our country. This is not about a political party. We're in grave danger, and I believe that we need to be looking out for America first.
You know, it's interesting to me during our campaign visit with a young man in Pueblo, Colorado, a mechanic. And his one admonition to me, we visited for 30 minutes or so, and his concern wasn't about his job. It wasn't about getting a pay increase. It was about his 6-year-old daughter and what type of a country is she going to inherit. And when we're talking about a cataclysm coming, $14.3 trillion in debt, that is a looming cataclysm that's going to be unsustainable for our children, for our grandchildren, and that's the challenge of this generation. Will we rise? Will we make the sacrifices that are going to be necessary to get the fiscal house back in order, to restrain the overreach of government? It's not that any intent is bad. There was always a good thought behind it, but there need to be limits because just like in our family lives, there are limits to not what we're capable of doing. There are just dollars not able to cover everything we would like to do. So that's the challenge of our time.
How many of you see yourselves still here in 10 years? Really? Really? You look at this as came here, what, 2 years?
I don't think it's about us individually. Yeah. It's about what needs to be changed for the country. And I think we all are very understanding of that. And it seems like the last 2 years have been more about individuals who are in Washington. We hope that the next two are more about the public.
Should be defined by those that put us here in the first place. Yeah. If this election stands for anything, again, putting aside Tea Party, non-Tea Party, it's a unique point in our history where the average American got involved in the political process, which I think is extremely healthy. It's imperative for the future of our democracy. But I really wholeheartedly believe that ultimately they decide our future more than we do. And what we're here to do is the best we can, openly, honestly, with the character and integrity that the office should have bestowed, be bestowed upon us.
We calculate, to do a little presidential politics, because we can't resist, we calculate 4 out of 10 of you, I believe, were endorsed by Sarah Palin. How many of you think she's the #1 candidate for 2012?
I don't think anybody has a real idea of who the #1 candidate is.
We've got lots of
got a real idea?
I think we've got a lot of history to go for in this next 3 months before it shapes up to where we see people getting into the race.
It's a wide open race.
Yeah.
Wide open.
And how much do you worry about what everyone says is the almost irresistible softening of the edges when you get to Washington, and the next thing you know, you're part of the establishment. You just are. You wake up one day and you are the establishment.
Well, I think Republicans were given a second chance, Diane, but I don't think we're going to be given a third chance. And I'm worried about what happens the next 2 years if we don't get something done about $14 trillion.
But is there a way to insulate yourself against what you think the worst?
It's called the American people.
I think particularly our calendar, and the way that we've gone to a 4-day work week, and that we spend a time, like a week back home, dialoguing with people. This is about the American people. We've said it over and over. It's empowering the American people because freedoms aren't free. They come with a price, and that's being involved in the decision-making of this country. And we just have to retool this all the way around. And I think that the time spent at home over a longer period of time instead of a quick weekend here, spending more time makes a valuable asset.
But it's also changing the stigma, and for good reason, what the establishment is. If we can change the culture, we should be proud to be a part of the establishment, because the establishment should be doing the prudent and wise and proper things. We should be acting responsibly as an establishment, as Congress as a whole. And that's really, I think, one of the biggest challenges that we face is changing the entire culture and getting away from personal agendas and political agendas and doing the will of the people. And if we can do that, then it won't be such a bad thing to say I'm part of an establishment that I'm proud of and helped shape and helped to rebuild.
Well, and setting the tone that the most important work you're doing is when you are back home, listening to your constituents, and then bringing what their positions are to Washington to reflect their views, I think would be a welcomed change, certainly in New Hampshire, and a welcome change in the country.